Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in Washington, D.C., Nick Harper. Hello, Nick.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, US President Joe Biden makes a case for a second term in office in a fiery State of the Union speech. And countries ramp up aid efforts for Gaza. We'll have the latest. But first, the headlines.
On International Women's Day, France inscribes the right to abortion in its constitution. President Macron pushes EU and the world to follow in France's footsteps to etch abortion as a fundamental right.
Today is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a fight. France today became the only country in the world to have a constitution that explicitly protects the right to abortion in all circumstances. And we only rest when this promise is upheld everywhere in the world.
As Russian-controlled Donetsk prepares for early voting in next week's presidential election, Sweden joins NATO as its 32nd member. Gunmen in Nigeria kidnapped more than 200 school pupils. The incident takes place after morning assembly at a local government education authority school in Kuriga town. And US President Joe Biden vows support for Ukraine and Israel and targets his predecessor during his State of the Union address. Trump responds, calling it the worst State of the Union speech ever made. As France makes a historic move by officially enshrining abortion rights in the country's constitution on Friday, French President Emmanuel Macron urged the European Union to include the right to abortion in its Charter of Fundamental Rights as most of the European countries have imposed restrictions on it and only few countries have legalized abortion. The decision becomes more significant as women globally celebrate International Women's Day today.
The backward steps of our time made it necessity and an emergency because everywhere in the world, including in the greatest democracies, including within our neighbors in Europe, we are observing a step backward in the right to abortion, in women's right, and the rise of those who refuse women the right to love, to choose, to live freely. And so since the unthinkable is taking place, it was necessary for us to engrave it as irreversible.
We have with us Ross Cullen joining us from Paris for more on this story. Ross, it was quite an enthusiastic speech by Emmanuel Macron. Why is abortion such an emotive and divisive issue in the West?
Hi Tanvi. When the French parliamentarians on Monday the 4th voted this through, it had broad parliamentary appeal. The left wing, the centre and the right wing overwhelmingly voting in favour of this move, which has now happened this Friday. Emmanuel Macron and his Justice Minister, traditionally with a huge heavy seal, enshrining abortion rights into the French constitution. However, there is division and there are some opposition voices on the right. The far right party, the National Rally, only half of them voted in favour. The other half of the party chose not to turn up to the vote or abstained or voted against. And the Conference of Catholic Bishops in France on Monday the 4th, when this was going through Parliament, the joint session of Congress in Château de Versailles, the bishops said it was better to write the rights of women and to enshrine the rights of children into the constitution, not access to pregnancy termination services. Emmanuel Macron did carry out that ceremony a little bit earlier here in central Paris, and he said, quote, "We're going to lead this fight in our continent, in our Europe. Reactionary forces are attacking women's rights."
The French president wants the right to abortion to become a universal right. What is the process by which EU could guarantee the right to abortion in its Charter of Fundamental Rights, and how likely is it to happen?
So France has become the first country in the world to officially enshrine access to abortions into its constitution. However, the situation between the different EU member states is very challenging for the people who are behind Emmanuel Macron, people who believe the same things as him, politicians of the same colour and background in terms of their political parties. They are going to face a challenge to try to bring all the different EU member states on board. For example, we have Catholic Malta and also heavily Catholic Poland. Both of those countries only allow abortions where the mother's life is in danger, or where the pregnancy is as a result of a criminal act such as a rape. So very different, very restrictive in terms of their abortion rules compared to France, which has actually just written into its constitution the rights to access abortion services. Emmanuel Macron does want to see the EU Charter change, but that would require unanimous approval from all 27 European Union member states, and because of the differing policies towards pregnancy terminations, another country which has also tightened its rules recently has been Hungary, making it more bureaucratic for women who want to try to access pregnancy termination services, to try to bring all those national capitals on board with politicians who think the same as Emmanuel Macron will be very challenging indeed.
France leading the way for now. Thank you very much, Ross Cullen, reporting to us from Paris. On to the US now. US President Joe Biden targeted Donald Trump several times in his fourth State of the Union address on Thursday, calling him a threat to democracy. Trump dismissed it as the worst State of the Union speech ever made. My colleague Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Nick, a hard-hitting State of the Union address.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly was, Tanvi. The US President Joe Biden took multiple jabs at former President Donald Trump during his State of the Union speech, addressing the joint session of Congress on Thursday night. Without mentioning Trump by name, Biden called him a threat to democracy. In his 68-minute address, the US President said that Donald Trump supports Russia and does not support a bill to tackle immigration. President Biden also reiterated that he's pushing for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Now it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
In his rebuttal, Donald Trump responded to US President Joe Biden point by point, saying that President Biden is the reason that the Middle East conflict is worsening, terming the State of the Union address as angry, polarizing and hate-filled. Trump targeted Biden for not speaking on the important migration crisis and said the US president wants the country to be flooded with migrants. Moving on, Sweden joined NATO in Washington on Thursday, 2 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine forced it to rethink its national security policy. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson handed over the final documentation to the US government on Thursday, the last step in a drawn-out process to secure the backing of all members to join the military alliance. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken received Sweden's documents from the Prime Minister and said, "Good things come to those who wait." Prime Minister Kristersson said Sweden is joining NATO in order to defend its freedom and democracy.
This is a historic event for our country. After more than 200 years of non-alignment, Sweden has joined the Western Defence Community. Together we become stronger and safer. It is a big step, but at the same time a natural step. The membership means that we have come home. Home to a larger number of democracies working together for peace and freedom. To our own neighboring countries, cooperation for security. Home to the circle of nations where we have long belonged. Sweden is a remarkable country, and we are joining Nato to even better defend what we are and what we believe in, our freedom and our democracy.
In his State of the Union address, President Joe Biden welcomed Sweden as the newest member of NATO, stating that now the alliance is stronger than ever.
America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined.
To the Middle East now, and UK Foreign Minister David Cameron has announced Britain will work alongside the United States to open a maritime corridor to deliver aid directly into Gaza. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Friday she expected a maritime aid corridor to start operating between Cyprus and Gaza this weekend, taking aid to the besieged Gaza Strip. Von der Leyen met with the Cypriot president in Nicosia to inspect facilities for aid shipments.
We are launching this Cyprus Maritime Corridor together. Cyprus, the European Union, the United Arab Emirates and the United States. And it is your relentless work to get this corridor up and running. Despite all the challenges, and this is truly inspiring. We are now very close to the opening of the corridor, hopefully this Sunday. And I'm very glad to see that an initial pilot operation will be launched today.
Several other countries are either already airdropping aid into Gaza or are planning to do so as famine concerns mount in the enclave. The US is planning to construct a temporary port off the coastline of Gaza to get more humanitarian aid into the territory by sea. The port will increase the amount of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians by hundreds of additional truckloads per day. The US and its Middle East allies are ramping up airdrops of food aid into Gaza. The US military carried out its third airdrop, dropping more than 38,000 ready-to-eat meals. And in joint efforts with France and Belgium, Jordanian armed forces also dropped aid over Gaza, with 9 airdrops in the northern part of the Gaza Strip alone. And the United Nations has said that international focus should be on large-scale distribution and entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza by land. But any way to deliver more aid, they say, is obviously good. DD India's Alex Cadier sent us this report from Jerusalem.
The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs just a few minutes ago saying that Israel welcomes the launch of the maritime corridor from Cyprus to the Gaza Strip, saying that the Cypriot initiative will allow for the increase of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip after security checks according to Israeli standards. And we've seen a similar statement from Israeli officials after the announcement that came out from President Biden's State of the Union speech. The statement from the Foreign Ministry here goes on to say that Israel will continue to fight Hamas, which calls for the destruction of the state of Israel. And we've seen just in less than an hour ago a statement from the USA, the UK, the European Commission, the UAE, some European member states, as well as Cyprus, of course, saying that they will work with the UN. Cyprus will convene officials from all the interested parties to figure out exactly how this maritime corridor will work, and they also welcomed the construction of a temporary pier by the United States. That pier will allow bigger ships to dock. The port in Gaza currently can only hold small fishing vessels, and so that will really allow the flow of aid to go in. But certainly that measure is being welcomed by the Israeli government, who's also being pressured by its allies to open more road crossings into Gaza. So really some strong reaction, of supportive reaction from the Israeli government so far.
The Israeli marathon has also been taking place over the last few days. The marathon saw multiple participants from around the world joining as a show of solidarity to what's been taking place. Many people turned up with banners looking to try and bring hostages back from Gaza. Others were showing a mark of patriotism by wearing Israeli flags. We're going to move on to some news about Ukraine now. And France's Defence Minister Sébastien Lecornu on Friday said that the country plans to have its defence companies build military equipment directly on Ukrainian soil to help in its conflict with Russia. The French Defence Minister said 3 companies will be setting up partnerships with Ukrainian companies, particularly in the drone and land equipment sectors. The arms manufacturers will produce spare parts and possibly ammunition in the future. Well, next to Nigeria, and more than 200 Nigerian children have been kidnapped by gunmen from a school in Kaduna State in the northwest part of Nigeria. The armed men came to the school in the morning while the students and their teachers were on the assembly ground. DD India's Tessa Makende tells us more.
Other children sustained injuries as they scampered for safety as the gunmen took away their colleagues. Some teachers from the school were also taken away. The incident is coming just days after gunmen also attacked Borno State in the country's northern region and took away about 50 people, mostly women. Attacks are common in Nigeria, especially in the northern region, where the gunmen take away people for ransom. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has described Thursday's attack on the school as unfortunate and called on the authorities to do everything possible to secure their release. Governor of the state, Uba Sani, has visited the community and assured residents that his government is doing everything possible to secure their release. The president has also asked security chiefs to ensure that kidnapping for ransom and other forms of criminality are defeated in the country. Tassim Akende in Jos, reporting for DD India.
Well, that's it from me here in a very bright and sunny Washington, D.C. Handing it back to you, Tanvi, in the studio.
Yes, it seems very bright from here. Thank you very much, Nick. Nick Harper joining us all from Washington, D.C. Now, as Russia gears up for presidential elections, ballots have been delivered to the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk on Friday. Russia's election body will conduct voting in 4 regions of Ukraine on March 15th to 17th this year. These regions were claimed by Russia last year, but Ukraine has said that it will not accept any Russian vote in Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson. Kiev also said that they will charge any Russian authority sent to these places for observation. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on this show. India says it has uncovered trafficking scheme duping people into fighting for Russia in Ukraine. And with the campaign theme Inspire Inclusion, world celebrates International Women's Day today.
Usually, our choice of transport is based on comfort, convenience, cost and time. But do we realize how do our choices impact the planet?
Under this project, we focus on planting indigenous trees. Smart City has set up the largest public bike-sharing project anywhere in the country.
The data shows that there are not only too few green spaces for the number of people, but that they're also unevenly distributed and mostly located in the city's wealthiest neighborhoods.
He sold these systems to a bunch of cities around the United States, and in most cases they have not materialized. It's the short tunnel that connects up the convention center and is mainly just an attraction for Teslas.
Climate change means we have to shift from combustion engines to electric vehicles. A lot of money has been invested already and change is underway.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi presented the first ever National Creators Award at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. The awards were presented for multiple categories, including the Best Creator for Social Change Award, Favorite Green Champion Award, Disruptor of the Year Award, Best Creator in Tech Category Award and Best Storyteller Award. During his address, Prime Minister Modi said that National Creators Award recognizes the talent of our creators community and it celebrates their passion to use creativity for driving a positive change.
ईश्वर कृपा है, मैं समय से पहले समय को भांप सकता हूं और इसलिए ये पहला ऐसा अवार्ड है जो शायद आने वाले दिनों में बहुत प्रमुख स्थान लेने वाला है। ये इस नए युग को एनर्जाइज कर रहे आप सब युवाओं को सम्मान देना, क्रिएटिविटी को सम्मान देना और समाज की रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी के प्रति जो संवेदनशीलता है उसको सम्मान करने का अवसर है।
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Friday called on Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo. Jaishankar conveyed warm greetings of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the Japanese Premier and apprised him of the progress made in foreign ministers' strategic dialogue between the two countries. He praised Fumio Kishida's valuable guidance on further strengthening of the global and special strategic partnership between India and Japan. On Indian nationals who've been duped to work in the Russian army, India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson said that India has strongly taken up the matter for early discharge of such Indian nationals.
Several Indian nationals have been duped to work with the Russian army. We have strongly taken up the matter with the Russian government for early discharge of such Indian nationals. Strong action has been initiated against agents and unscrupulous elements who recruited them on false pretexts and promises. The CBI yesterday busted a major human trafficking network, conducting searches in several cities and collecting incriminating evidence. A case of human trafficking has been registered against several agents. We once again appeal to Indian nationals to not be swayed by offers made by agents for support jobs with the Russian army. This is fraught with danger and risk to life. We remain committed to early release of our nationals serving as support staff with the Russian army and their eventual return home.
India is celebrating the festival of Maha Shivaratri today. The festival is devoted to honoring Lord Shiva with prayers and these fasting observed by people across the country. On the occasion, celestial celebrations unfolded at the holy shrines of Lord Shiva all over the country. Maha Shivaratri is celebrated as a day when goddess Parvati married Lord Shiva. Maha Shivaratri was also celebrated across the world with places like New York's Times Square, Mauritius, Sri Lanka immersing in the colors of this holy Hindu festival. And we now take a look at what else is happening around the world. For the past 10 years, it has remained one of the modern era's greatest mysteries. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, carrying 239 people from 15 countries, deviated from its scheduled route on March 8th in 2014, heading from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The plane, a Boeing 777, veered off course and flown south for several hours after it lost radar contact. The reason for the plane's deviation and its exact location remains a significant aviation mystery. Essence held its 17th annual Black Women in Hollywood Awards, honoring black women who have made significant contributions to the entertainment industry. This year's honorees included Halle Bailey, Danielle Brooks, Catherine Busby, among others. The event, hosted by rapper and actor Cliff Method Man Smith, will air on the OWN network on March 15th. A golf game near Melbourne was disrupted by a herd of kangaroos, as seen in a video of hundreds of marsupials crossing the fourth hole of the St. John course at the Heritage Golf and Country Club in Victoria, Australia. International Women's Day is celebrated every year on 8th of March. It's a day to celebrate the achievements of women in every field, from grassroots activism to global movements, and their share in protecting the country. We honor the resilience, strength and contributions of women in every field.
Today, on International Women's Day 2024, we celebrate the achievements of Indian women who have made their mark on the global stage. This year's theme is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. Resonates strongly in India as we witness the incredible feats of women across all fields. From Priyanka Chopra's success in Hollywood to Gwyneth Monga clinching an Oscar for Indian documentary Elephant Whisperers, Indian women have proven time and again that they are forces to be reckoned with. In India's groundbreaking journey to space exploration, Nigar Shahji, Project Director Aditya L1, and Ritu Karidhal, Rocket Women of India, and others have left an indelible mark. Indian female entrepreneurs like Kiran Majumdar-Shaw and Indra Nui have built empires and inspired millions with their leadership and innovation. Meanwhile, athletes like Mary Kom, Sheetal Devi and PV Sindhu have shown the world what true determination and skill can achieve. In the realm of politics, women like Sushma Swaraj, Nirmala Sitharaman, Meenakshi Lekhi, Smriti Irani and many more have paved the way for future generations of female leaders. India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is making big strides as far as women empowerment is concerned. After years of work, the Indian Parliament passed the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam or Women's Reservation Bill in 2023, giving them 1/3 of seats in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and the Delhi Assembly.
In India, we are not limited to women's empowerment. Ours is a women-led development. Women are setting the agenda for development and are also the agents of growth and change.
Women, with their perseverance, are breaking all records. This year, we also saw the first women contingent of forces at Republic Day Parade 2024. As we celebrate International Women's Day in India, let us continue to invest in our women, support their dreams, and accelerate progress towards a more inclusive and equal society. Because when we empower women, we empower the world, we empower the universe. Lipakshi Khurana, DD India.
Now, as we are celebrating the International Day of Women, we bring you stories from across the world of women who've made a difference. Thousands of Berliners marked Women's Day, a public holiday in Germany's capital. Women in the country say that they believe that pay gap will finally end if they are united. An Egyptian woman, Basant Alam, shackled all the barriers and continued to live her dream of riding a horse. Despite criticisms, she has trained nearly 75 women over the past few years. Nigerian woman entrepreneur Kila Kafidipe runs a fishery that she says is a sustainable solution to overfishing and reducing imports. A former banker with a passion for aquaculture, she harvested 5 tons of fish in her first 6 months, and the number has progressively grown to her, closing out in 2023 with almost 300 tons of fish, serving both the hospitality sector and individuals. So as the world celebrates the International Women's Day, the theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, becomes all the more important, as wishing every woman who is breaking stereotypes a very happy International Women's Day. That's it in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.